Alrighty, this is Brushpix.com, and we're going to be talking a little bit today about Simpleton High. How you doing today, Chief?
Not bad, sir. How about you?
Dude, I'm excellent today. I'm really excited to talk about this. So tell me a little bit about the history of the comic and why it's so special to you.
Well, I don't know if it's special to me, but Simpleton High was something that actually started way back in high school.
Yeah.
It was just a comic book, that I was drawing to kind of show around between my friends and all that kind of stuff. And the funny thing is the actual comic book was not about my high school life. It's actually about my junior high school life. The way kind of the people you meet, some of the teachers, all that were kind of modeled from my junior high school experience.
So some of them are based off of real people then?
Oh, yeah. So, but mostly the visual, not the characteristics.
Sure.
I mean, as a kid, you don't really know people that well enough, but you just kind of based on what they look like, and then you make up your personality as you go along. Yeah, of course, as a comedy comic book, the character personalities are a little bit more extreme.
Mm-hmm. So how did you sort of construct the story? What are some of the things that you were thinking about when you were putting it together?
Well, I think when I first did it way back in high school, a lot of it was just around funny in-jokes that people kind of tell each other. Like your friends say some joke, that's pretty funny, I'm going to put it down, and you show it to your friend, he laughs because remember that joke. Mm-hmm. But what was kind of interesting was then I went to the second year, of my high school. And you show some people, it's not funny anymore because they don't get the joke. So that's the first time I realized, okay, I have to write jokes a little bit more broad, a little bit, something that's not so between friends and all that kind of stuff. So inch by inch, you start to adjust it and make it a little bit more, more accessible to people who doesn't know what it was like if they read the previous version.
Right.
And the weird part of Simpleton High kind of went through two versions, even in my high school years. Of course, the first, sophomore year, there was the very raw version. The characters were kind of there, different kind of setup, different kind of, background setting for some of the people. And then I refined it the second year.
Yeah.
And really was kind of how Simpleton High came together. You kind of threw out some of the characters that you don't think was funny anymore after the first year. You come up with a few new ones, and then you actually structure a real story the second time around.
Sure. Speaking of characters, which ones are some of your favorites?
I would say Miss Busty is probably my favorite
character. I think that's a lot of people's favorites.
Yeah, and she wasn't my favorite originally because you're just drawing a high school comic book. You're like, I want to have a sexy teacher in there. But in the process of kind of retooling that throughout the years and finally making an official version that you can kind of read on the web right now, which was still done over 10 years ago. That was when I say, okay, how can I really embellish this character a little better? Give her sort of a backstory or something that kind of makes sense to the character. And what I did, I think, was Simpleton High issue number 6, which turned out to be probably one of the funnier issues I've written at the time. And I remember a lot of people reading it, really, really liking it. Because then you go from just a character who has the visual of a sexy teacher to actually having a real story. And then the story has a little bit moral and a thing involved as well.
Sure. For people who haven't read it yet, can you tell us a little bit about that?
About this whole comic book or just that issue?
Just that issue in particular.
Just that issue. Well, that issue actually has two stories. There's a Harry Potter parody in there.
Yes. And
then at the same time, it is a character, sort of a character development story about Miss Busty.
Sure.
And it's sort of has the theme of be careful what you wish for.
Right.
Was kind of the dominant idea that I went with. And really also a bit have a story about how just because the way you look doesn't really bring you, good luck or all that kind of stuff. Sometimes it could be a burden. Sure. About how people just see you for who you are on the surface.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. One of the things that I really find interesting about the book is just the cast of characters. Mm-hmm. I think that there is a wide variety of people that you're interacting with.
Sure.
And sort of seeing how they change throughout the stories, I think, is pretty interesting. Like, my favorite guy is the gym teacher who walks around with the big bottle of Coke. Is that what it is?
No, he's actually the math teacher.
He's the math teacher. Right?
Yeah. Who was based on a real math teacher of mine in junior high school.
Okay, yeah.
And the reason he hits kids with a, sort of a Pepsi bottle is because, that teacher at the time actually, hit a kid once as a joke in the head with an empty Pepsi bottle. So we just went with that.
Right.
And because it kind of works as a visual gag,
mm-hmm.
and it kind of works as a really bizarre character trait I end up keeping. And then he's probably one of the characters that carried over from the very, very, very original Inception to the current version.
Yeah, who else carried over?
I think the main character, Addy, is is carried over, but he was sort of based on my best friend at the time from junior high school. Of course, the personality is drastically differently written now, but it was so he was kind of a carryover. Miss Busty is definitely one of them.
Sure.
I would say the principal was also a carryover from the original version.
Right.
And the principal was actually based on a history teacher of mine. The way he looks from junior high school as well. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting where, even though it's a kind of about high school, most of it was experience based on junior high.
Sure. One of the other good things that's about it is that it's about kids and they're actually in school for a good portion of the time. Yes. Compared to a lot of stories where they spend time doing other things outside of it.
Yes.
And so, it's definitely funny and it's good to be able to see it. It's definitely not something that other people have read in other places. So, I would definitely recommend people to, go check it out, on brushpix.com.
Yeah. Well, hope you guys get a chance to read it, enjoy some of the stories. Like I said, some of them were done almost over 10 years ago, probably in the early 2000s.
Right.
Some of the jokes may be a little bit outdated now, but, I decided to, still put it up as it is because I think that just kind of represents where I was as a sort of a writer, comic book artist at the time. And I just think it's almost like a little time capsule,
yeah, sure.
of where America was kind of is at the time too, in terms of the kind of humor that's presented, the type of characters that you see back then.
Right.
More along the line, probably around something like South Park is the type of humor that it was kind of what it was kind of shooting for at the time period.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. So if you guys like these kinds of comic books or you think that these kinds of things are really funny, definitely subscribe to our channel and just take a chance to look through some of our other content. And also, please be sure to go to our website so you can read the entire series of Simpleton High, issues 1 to 11, and just get a chance to just sort of see what we're about. You can do all of that for free. Thanks, guys.
See you next time, folks.